I will correct the mistakes that I've made, the typographical mistakes. I can't correct other mistakes, photography mistakes, but I will correct the typographical mistakes as I go along here. Sorry that I made so many, but it's human to err, they say. Kathy Taylor did a lot of calling and trying to gather up pictures for me to put in this video. She sent me what she could get, and I wish that we could have had a lot more pictures of the family, but we didn't. And I'll have to. I can't apologize for using so many of my immediate family, the pictures of my immediate family. But I had more. Had I had more pictures of other Cessna families, then I would have put them in this video. I didn't put my immediate family in, particularly myself, so much in a vain way, because I'm certainly not a vain person. This camera, I shot most of this, I shot all of it in macro, and oftentimes I would be less than an inch away from the subject. The pictures are the copy, and it was very difficult to keep it in focus shooting in macro. I just had a nice visit from my Aunt Sue and my cousin, her daughter, last week. Mrs. Cleany, Janice Cleany is Aunt Sue's daughter that lives over here in Walnut Creek. It's about an hour and a half from here. These cartoons coming up were drawn for me by a good friend of mine, Dardo Valdez, who's the head artist of Filmation in Hollywood. And this is my favorite little old mouse, and he is sure stuffed full of that cheese. He just can't move. Well, that Swiss cheese is good cheese, though, and I don't blame him for overeating there, because I like Swiss cheese too. And this is Snoopy with his Sopwith Camel. The Red Baron almost shot him down once. He just filled Snoopy's Sopwith Camel full of bullet holes, but Snoopy managed to escape. He sure does love his Sopwith Camel. And then coming up here is Snoopy doing dishes. He had to do KP, something he did wrong. He doesn't like to do dishes. You can tell by the expression on his face, and boy, I don't like to do them either. And that goes for Cessna offsprings too, not just for the Cessnas per se, but for the Cessna offsprings too. I think we're all whopping good people. And this is my great-great-grandfather, Robert John Culbertson Cessna. His mother was a Culbertson. Notice that his hair is parted in the center. He has a mustache and a goatee. I'll show you a picture, a big family reunion picture here pretty soon that he and my great-grandmother, Angeline Calvert Cessna, were in. Great-great-grandfather, Robert John Culbertson Cessna. That was an old picture, wasn't it? I believe that I've corrected that. I've been able to, I think, put the proper names to the proper faces. At first I didn't. I've redone this many times, trying to get it right. Harwood Cessna, they published his Cessna family history in 1932, made quite an error. He claims that our forefathers came from France, when in reality our forefathers came from Italy. And I've misspelled McLean wrong there. I misspelled it rather, and it should be M-C-L-E-A-N, not M-C-C. And most of the Cessnas were in McLean settlement. Some were in Muhlenberg settlement. I remember Uncle Bud Cessna lived in Central City, and some lived over near Powderly. I don't remember who they were. And you look right up in the center of this picture, and you'll see my great-great-grandfather, Robert John Culbertson, and on his left is his wife, Angeline Calvert Cessna. I wish I could identify some more of these people, but I can't. That poem is interesting to read there too, I think. I thought it was funny anyway. Great-great-grandfather Robert John Culbertson Cessna. Uncle Bud there, my mother and Dad and us kids lived with him in Central City for a short time. When Dad was rolled from Livermore, he had to roll into Central City. He was depot agent there in Central City, but we didn't live with Uncle Bud very long. As soon as my father found a house, we moved. He lived in a big two-story building. It was out towards Greenville. And this is my great-grandfather, Robert Marion Cessna, and he's with his sister. And on the left is Ida, and on the right is Maggie. And I knew Ida quite well. She lived up around Russellville, Kentucky, and has quite a family there. And we used to go up visiting her. Maggie came to visit us when we lived in South Carolina, and Mother fixed dinner, and she baked biscuits and cornbread, and Maggie didn't like either one, so I had to go to town to get a loaf of bread to make her happy. She was kind of a cranky eater, but she was a very nice lady. And this is Grandfather John Eccles with his sister Zaretta. We called Grandpa John Eccles, everybody called him Uncle Eck. And if I refer to him in this video as Uncle Eck, you know that that's my grandfather. And this is Uncle Eck and Grandma Elizabeth. I remember when I was very small, 4 or 5 years old, I was visiting them out on their farm, and I went out to the tobacco patch to watch Uncle Eck top and worm tobacco, and he'd break the top off, throw it on the ground, and then he'd reach in and get a tobacco worm and bite it in two and spit it out on the ground. The tobacco juice would run down his mouth and his jaw, and he'd just go on worming and topping. And then one time I stole a leaf of tobacco out of the tobacco barn, and I took it into Grandma Elizabeth's stove, and I dried it out, and I crumbled it up and got a piece of brown paper sack, and I rolled it up in there and smoked it, and boy, did I get sick. I think that was my first experience with tobacco. I have to correct my grandfather's name. It wasn't James Eccles Cessna, it was John Eccles Cessna. John Eccles Cessna. Erase that James. I wish I had a way of erasing it. I can't reshoot it because I don't have all the pictures where I can go back through it. If I had them, I'd redo the whole thing, but I don't. You notice my father Gilbert was firstborn, and then Uncle Clyde came right along behind him, and then Eva, who died in infancy, was the third born. My father Gilbert and Clyde were born in a log cabin out of Island, Kentucky, in a log cabin on the Calvert homestead. You'll notice that the only two children surviving in the Cessna family there is Aunt Ethel and Aunt Sue. Aunt Ethel lives in Island, Kentucky, and Aunt Sue lives in Livermore, Kentucky. I just visited, just had a nice visit with Aunt Sue. I believe it's last week. And this is a big Cessna family reunion, and I'll name these off as best I can. I'll go from left to right, always from left to right. And this is Charles and Opal, who's Clyde's children, William Mack, this Aunt Ann's son, and Homer that we call Bean. That's my Uncle Homer that we call Bean. And then we have Clara Dean in the white top, Aunt Ann's daughter, and Sally, Homer's wife, and Mildred, Uncle Roy's daughter, and then Merle, Clarence's wife. It's a nice bunch of Cessnas, isn't it? And this is Aunt Sue, Sweet Sue, in the white top there, and Uncle Clarence peeking around the corner there, and right next to Uncle Clarence is A.R. Pollock, Sue's husband, and then Aunt Ethel, and then above Aunt Ethel is Peggy Allen, Aunt Ethel's husband. And below there is Uncle Eck, Grandpa Eck. And this is Myrtle, Roy's wife, and Dee, Uncle Roy's daughter, and then Uncle Roy in the white shirt, and below there's Grandma Elizabeth and my father Gilbert. And next to Roy there is my mother Mabel. She's got the black blouse on, and it's Opal's husband right to the right of her. And then here is Marie, Elwood, Uncle Elwood we call Cuddy, and Martha Sue, his daughter. And then Minnie is next, Cuddy's wife, Uncle Elwood's wife. And then this is Georgia and her husband Harvey Lee. I got my middle name from Harvey Lee. My middle name is Lee. He was one of my favorite uncles. I've got a lot of good memories of him. And this is Grandpa Eck and Grandma Elizabeth, and she's holding Opal's daughter. And this is my father Gilbert and my Uncle Clyde. I don't know why I went off here to the right. I kind of strayed off this picture, and these children, as Rhonda Faye, Clarence's daughter, Joyce Aunt Ethel's daughter, Hugh Carroll, Uncle Hamp's son, and Tony, Uncle Punch's son, Jimmy, Uncle Cuddy's son, and Adrian, Uncle Hamp's son, and next but not least is Aunt Sue's daughter, little Janice. She must not like to have her picture taken here because she was biting her nails and kind of nervous about it. Can't blame her. She's sure a beautiful lady now. And these are the entire family of Uncle Eck and and Grandma Elizabeth. I'll pull them out with that spot and name them off. And this is Uncle Bean. This is Aunt Sue, Sioux City Sue, Aunt Ethel, Aunt Ethel, Uncle Roy, Aunt Ann. Aunt Ann died last year, 91. This is 1992. This is Uncle Harvey Lee, we call Punch. And this is Uncle Elwood that we call Cuddy, and he was the sheriff of McLean County for one term. And this is Uncle Clarence. That's Harvey Lee's twin brother. And this is Uncle Roy. I mean, that's Uncle Clyde, excuse me. Uncle Roy was up above. That was Uncle Clyde. And this is Grandma and Grandpa, but I had them out of focus. I'll pull them back into focus. That's Grandma Elizabeth. Now come on back here to Grandpa Eck. Dear Grandma. And my father Gilbert. It's too bad that picture was torn right down through the right side of my father's head. And here I go off to the right there. I don't know what I was doing, but all that's there is pants and shirts. I hope you enjoyed that, by golly. My father, my dear father. And these are the existing children at the time this was taken. I'll pull them out in, from left to right. And with that stamp. This is my Uncle Roy. He worked for the Green River Chair Company in Livermore, where he lived for many years. And this is Aunt Ethel. This is Aunt Ann. This is Uncle Elwood, we call Cuddy. I don't know what I mentioned, but he was a sheriff in McLean County for one term. And this is Aunt Sue, a Livermore girl. And this is Uncle Clyde. Uncle Clyde lived in Illinois, Granite City, for many years, and he worked for the Granite City Steel Mill. I imagine that his children, Charles and Opal, are still living in Granite City. This is my father Gilbert. This was taken when he was probably around 28 years old. He was a depot agent at Livermore at the time Anna Jean and I were born. He went on to become a dispatcher. My sister begat 8 children. I begat 5 boys. My boys were James Earl, Darrell Lee, Lauren Allen, Carl Lewis, and Brian Lee. Brian Lee being born in 54, my oldest was born in 43. And this is my father, was taken not too long before he died. And you notice the expression on his face there. He turns down his mouth and raises his head a little bit. And I have a nephew that does the same identical thing. I'll point it out pretty soon. I'll point him out in the picture. And this is my mother Mabel holding Anna Jean when she was about 3 months old. This was taken in Livermore, Kentucky. And this is Anna Jean that probably at 3 years of age. And she has big, beautiful blue eyes and has on a beautiful frilly dress. My mother always dressed her neatly. We were both towheads until we were probably around 3 years old. Then our hair started turning darker. And this is Anna Jean when she was 13. This was taken to South Carrollton, Kentucky grade school in South Carrollton, Kentucky. That school has been torn down for many years. We live right next door to it. And this is Anna Jean after she graduated from nursing school. She went on to teach nursing for 35 or 40 years at St. Mary's Hospital or the University of Evansville. And these are the 8 children that she begat. There's 4 girls on the left and 4 boys on the right. And my brother-in-law John Beckman's arm and hand here in the foreground, and my sister in the background. Upstairs they built a boys' dormitory on one end and a girls' dormitory on the other end, and they had the bath facilities in the middle. Those kids had to climb some awful steep steps to get up there. And these are Anna Jean's children after they were grown. That's in the back, left from right, is David and Tom with that expression on his face that my father had, and then it's Dan, and then Michael. And in the front is Nancy, Sarah, Mary, and Margaret. 3 of the boys are engineers, and Dan is a heart surgeon in Indianapolis, Indiana. 2 of the girls are nurses, and And Mary, third from the left there, dropped out of college after about 2 years, but she's just recently returned to college. I believe she's studying psychology. And then Margaret is getting married in November of this year, and I believe her title is a chemical engineer at Whirlpool in Evansville, Indiana, where she works and where most of the family lives. And this is Anna Jean after the children were grown. I asked her one time why she didn't lose some weight, and she said, well, if I lost weight, I'd think something's wrong with me. Well, there is. She has cancer, but they're holding it down with chemotherapy, and she's doing rather nicely. And this is my mother that they call Sunshine in Evansville, Indiana, in the stores where she traded. She'd hit the door, and they'd say, here comes Sunshine. She was a very jolly person, had a beautiful sense of humor, right up to her death. I don't know who this turkey is. He keeps flopping in here into the picture somehow. Now, this was taken about 3 o'clock one morning when some friends of mine came to visit from Los Angeles. They stayed about 3 days, and we had a real nice visit. And this is little old me when I was about 11 months old, 10 or 11 months old. I'm giving out about a half a smile, but I take after my father. He never was much of a smiler, and I never have been either. Mater, tater, tomato. And this is me when I was about 11. I was 11 years old. Mrs. Brown, my school teacher, made me button that collar, and it choked me, and I didn't like it. You can tell by the expression on my face. And this is me when I was 17, just before I went into the service, and that's my dog Minnie sitting there beside me. I'll tell you how I got Minnie. Lucian Miller, who owned the Luray Hotel in Central City, had a bitch dog by the name of Minnie, and he raised these Boston Bulls. And so I stole his bitch dog Minnie because I liked her so much, and I took her home with me. A couple of days later, Lucian found out where she was, and he came to get her. And I said, well, Lucian, someone was trying to steal her, but I took her out of the wagon, and I brought her in the house, and I was going to bring her back. But I wasn't. I was going to keep her as long as I could. But anyway, he told me that the next litter of pups that she has, I can come in to the hotel and pick out my pick of the litter, and that was my pick of the litter, and I named her Minnie after her mother. She would swim the river with me. She was such a good companion to me as I grew up. I got her when I was rather young, and we just sort of grew up together. And this is me on my college campus, taken in 49 or 50. This is in Texas. I don't have any gray hair there, but boy, things sure do change. I'm almost white-headed now. And this is me holding my son, D. Lee, and this was taken on Fountain Avenue in Hollywood, California. Right up the street was the Cedar Lebanon Hospital where D. Lee was born. It's been torn down for many years. And this is D. Lee and Lauren Allen sitting down in the buggy there. We call Lauren Allen Eddie now. This was taken right outside of their grandfather's church in Point Richmond, California. And this next picture will be the boys with their grandmother Olson. I call her Mom Olson myself. And that's Eddie down at the bottom on the left, and then there's D. Lee on the right. She cared for them much of the time as they were growing up. And this is Lauren Allen, that we call Eddie, and D. Lee. And this picture was taken when their great-grandfather, Olson, at the bottom, was 100 years old. I believe this was taken in Seattle, Washington. And this is Eddie's family. It's Eva, Melissa, Eddie, and Kevin. I'll pull them out with that sand filter. And this is Eva. Doesn't she have a beautiful smile? And look at the expression in her eyes. She sure expresses herself. She's a good mother and a good wife. He couldn't have asked anyone better. And this is my granddaughter, little Melissa. Seems like she's got a crown on her head. Well, she must be a princess. We'll call her a princess anyway. She's cute, isn't she? And this is my son Eddie. He's a pretty handsome fellow. He got his looks from his mother. Nice looking person, isn't he? And this is my grandson Kevin. He looks like he'd be mischievous, but I don't think he could get by with much. His mother and dad straightened him out real fast. I tried to pull him over to the edge of this screen so it would appear that he was looking around the corner, but I didn't quite make it. Isn't he a cutie? And this is my son Dee Lee on the left, my grandchildren Julie and Vicky, and then Peggy, their mother. I'll pull them out. This is Dee Lee. Doesn't he look mean? He is mean. He's the meanest person I've ever known. And this is my granddaughter Julie. Julie and Vicky are grown now, and they're beautiful ladies. And Vicky got married last year, and she's expecting her first child in December. That's little old Vicky. And this is their mother, Peggy, and I just dearly love this lady. She's one of the sweetest ladies that I've ever known, and she's such a kind person. If Dee Lee hadn't treated her like she's a dog, they'd still be married. But they got a divorce, and she's remarried and very happy. They live over in the Bay Area near San Francisco, and Julie lives with them, my granddaughter. And this is myself and my mother Sunshine and my sister Anna Jean. I believe this picture was taken in Evansville, Indiana. This is under glass, and you'll see my shadow. Anytime I shoot a picture under glass, you'll see my shadow operating, because I have to get right up on the picture with the camera. I didn't have any later pictures of Opal and Charles, as well as a lot of my other first cousins. I wish that I'd received them so I could have put them in this video. And I didn't have any later pictures of Mildred and Dee. They were all in that big family reunion picture, though. My sister and I weren't in it because I was in the service, and she was in college at Murray State in Kentucky. And I didn't have any later pictures of Jimmy and Martha Sue, Uncle Coody's children. They were in that big family reunion picture. But Coody was holding Martha Sue, and little Jimmy was sitting on the ground in front. And of course, as I said, Eva, the third born of all the Cessna kids there, my father's family, died in infancy. Or I should have said my grandfather Eck and Grandma Elizabeth's family. And this is Aunt Ann's 90th birthday cake. That's a nice looking cake, and boy, that's a nice looking aunt too, isn't it? She died last year in 1991. She could have been 91 at the time of her death. I don't know whether she died before her birthday or after. No one told me. And these are my three aunts. My Aunt Sue at Livermore, Kentucky, and Aunt Ann that died last year, and then my Aunt Ethel that lives in Island, Kentucky. Clara Dean and William Eckles were also in that big family reunion picture. And this is William Eckles Boyd and his mother Ann Boyd Stanley, and Ann's daughter Clara Dean Boyd Brown. She married a gentleman with the name of Brown. Their picture's coming right up. And this is Clara Dean, Aunt Ann's daughter, and her husband, Conrad Brown Sr. I believe they live up in northern Indiana, up near Chicago. I'm quite sure they do. And from left to right is Conrad Brown Sr. and Clara Dean Boyd Brown, their daughter Elizabeth Brown, and Aunt Ann and William Eckles. And this is Conrad Brown Sr. and their daughter Elizabeth Ann and Clara Dean. Mama Clara Dean. And this from left to right is Conrad Brown Jr., Ryan, and Marie Brown, Conrad's Brown Jr.'s wife, and then Stacy, and then at the bottom is Megan and Nicole. I'll show pictures of these children as I come to them here. This is Carradine's grandson, Ryan, at age 14. He's a handsome little fellow, isn't he? I bet he's quite studious, too. He probably keeps his head in a book quite a bit of the time. And this is little Stacy at 12. Look at those dimples. Isn't she a pretty girl? I could just hug her neck. And this is little Nicole. Look at that smile. Isn't that a nice smile? I could hug that neck too, and there's plenty of neck there to hug. She's a sweet looking girl, isn't she? Cute as she can be. And last but not least is little Megan at 7. Look at that smile. How you like that for a smile? Look at those laughing eyes. Isn't she a winner? And coming up is Aunt Ethel, and her son Kenny will be coming up here. I just talked to Kenny for quite a while. That's Kenny there. They live in Island, Kentucky. This was taken in 1991, I'm quite sure. Kenny was sure nice to talk to. As I say, I talked to him tonight. And Joyce is back there now. So she lives in Sacramento, California, but she's back visiting their mother. And from left to right, that's Peggy Allen and Joyce Rios and Aunt Ethel and Kenny. Joyce and Kenny are Aunt Ethel and Peggy's son and daughter. And from left to right, that's Aunt Ethel Allen and Victoria Rios, Patricia Rios, and Joyce Allen Rios. This was taken at Kentucky Lake. They say that Kentucky Lake is a beautiful resort area, and they say that the fishing is awful good. And I'd sure like to drop a line in that and see what I came up with. And this is Victoria Rios and her father Mike Rios. That's Joyce's husband. They live, as I say, in Sacramento, California. I'm going to get up there to see them one of these days. And this picture from left to right is Joyce's granddaughter Angela and her daughters Patricia, Victoria, and Elizabeth. And I'll pull them out with this spot, but I got Angela very bad out of focus, and I didn't catch it in time to put it back in focus. And I also had Patricia's picture out of focus, but I managed to bring that back into focus. That's Patricia. Isn't she a beautiful lady? She got those dark brown eyes and a beautiful smile. And this is Victoria. How you like that? That black hair and those dark brown eyes, and she's just as nice a looking lady as you'd ever want to see. And of course this is Elizabeth. How you like that for a smile? And dark brown eyes again. I'm a sucker for dark brown eyes. And coming up is Michelle Rios, Joyce's oldest daughter, with her son Adam. Adam is Joyce's grandson, and Mike's grandson also. This is Uncle Homer that we call Bean. He was kind of a reserved person. He wasn't, loud like a lot of us. And in the center, up at the top, is Adrian, and then Carol, his daughter, to his right, and his wife, Marilyn, to the left, and then sitting is Johnny and Nikki. That was a big stump they were sitting on, wasn't it? This is Merle and Uncle Clarence that we call Hamps. This must have been taken in Island, Kentucky. I can't imagine him living anywhere but Island. I believe that Hugh Carroll had a couple of children. I'm not sure, but I think that he did by his wife, by his first wife. And from left to right here is Merle Clarence's wife, and then Tim, Denny's son.